soothed in those moments.
A little more bait and switch. Like, just something just not make it so horrific.
Yeah.
Not make it such a haunted house.
Yeah. Well, because also when they're so distressed, they release all these kind of hormones and things that are actually very bad for us as well.
And then it's in the food. I believe that a ton.
Yeah.
So does everyone have the chance to find their purpose? Say if somebody they accidentally got a girlfriend pregnant in high school, something like that, and they got really put off track, developed a lot more responsibility. Because sometimes responsibility takes away the freedom that you have, even just the space in your life to feel anything. But those people they don't not have a purpose. Maybe they just haven't been able to reach it.
Well, yeah. I mean, these things happen to everyone. We're all human beings. We're flawed. We can't see the future. Especially when we're young, we make mistakes. We do things that we will later regret, etc. And I've dealt with people who say, I'm stuck in a horrible, horrible job. I have, just like your scenario, I have a child I have to support, a family to support. And I'm flipping burger. I'm working at Dairy Queen. I don't care, whatever it is, right?
Yeah, selling things, braiding hair at the beach, something like that.
Or telemarketing back in the day.
Yeah.
So what do I do? Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to realize that you have to want to get out of it. You have to want it badly enough. So you got to figure out a path out of this trap that you're in. And it is a trap because if you're living paycheck to paycheck, it becomes a habit and it's going to stay with you your whole life. So every time there isn't a paycheck, you're going to freak out. You're going to go get the quickest, easiest job that you can get. You have to break out of that. So I tell people, even in the most despondent circumstances, first of all, think of what is that childhood thing that you loved? It doesn't have to be specific. It doesn't have to be a very specific job. It's just something that excited you, all right? Okay, we want to start moving in that direction. So let's say you're flipping burgers, but what really excites you is video games and programming, which is fine. That could be a path in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you want to be a programmer. You want to be the person creating video games, all right? So let's do some research. What is the first step what's the entry-level job that people take? What is the education that will lead to that kind of thing? All right, it's like 3 possibilities. You go to school, you study this, you get a job doing that, whatever. Okay, you can choose one of them, right? And you're going to start doing it right away. So you still have your job, you're still paying for your family, but you're going to go to school at night. You're going to take a side job. When you go home at night, you're going to study things on the internet, which is an amazing resource that nobody had 30 years ago. You're going to learn new skills in your spare time, even in the only 2 or 3 hours a day that you have. You're going to create a little space in your brain for moving in that direction, a little wedge that's going to open up. And I've had this feedback. Just knowing that that's happening, that's just knowing that's a possibility, that I don't have to be flipping burgers, that I don't have to be this horrifying, soul-sucking salesman my whole life, and that I can go this other route. It's enough to excite the hell out of it. It's enough to get you out of it. It's enough to give your life some meaning and some purpose.
Yeah, and then you will follow that sort of thing. That energy, it's like it really becomes a magnet in your life.
Yeah. How did you find your way? What was it that can you go back?
Yeah, I remember. Well, I wanted to. I think I wanted to make my mother laugh. My mother was always stressed out, and I no, it's funny.
It's terrible.
It is what it is, And she would, but sometimes she'd go lay in her bikini outside and have a beer or whatever, and so we left her alone on that. During those hours. But otherwise, I think I wanted to make her laugh. I don't know, the second I saw, this may sound crazy to some people, I remember being like in it might have just been my bed, or I don't think it was a crib, because I hate when people say that I remember at 4 months old like that. I think that's insane. You don't remember shit. You've been using. But I remember one time I just remember being in my bed and my brother poked his head up, and I just remember it just made me laugh. And it was like the first thing I remember that made me feel so good. And I loved it.
That's interesting. Huh?
And then when I saw, like, if somebody laughed, that even if they were sad, like, and you could get them to laugh, it could, that someone could be crying and then a laugh could get through that.
Yeah.
And man, I just found that it was like watching lightning.
It's like power.
Yeah, it was just like watching lightning, I think. And so, I think I loved that. And then the other thing the happiest day I ever had in my life, I was a student actually on an exchange thing, and I was in India, the country.
Yeah.
And we worked at this children's home, clearing the land or something so they could make a playground there. And I still remember it was the greatest feeling that I ever had, just this one day. So yeah, those are things in my life. The India part was, I was probably 20. But the laughter was just most of my youth. I just became obsessed with laughter. Because it was a trump card.
Yeah.
It was like,
Yeah.
it could be a sad moment. It could already be a happy moment. You could take it to another level.
Well, let's just imagine a scenario where you're 26 and you're you, and you somehow got off on the wrong track somewhere. Would you be able to like remember that and remember the power and the feeling that you had when you, with that laughter, and then when you were a kid and your brother, and then go back to it in some way?
Yeah, I think I would notice. I think it's, you can know, I feel like it's kind of easy to know what really makes you feel good.
Yeah.
I just think that sometimes circumstances have sailed our ship, kind of far in other directions. And so we may be able to appease ourselves, but we may not get to a level of mastery of it in this lifetime.
That's right.
Just because of circumstances, and then if people, another thing I notice is like a lot of times, some people aren't always going to be trying to achieve and do more. I notice a lot of times I enjoy also just feeling content. Like if I can feel content, that is a victory, right?
Like, what do you mean?
Like just if I can feel at peace,
Yeah.
right? Like not only, maybe I might be a little bummed if I'm not striving for something, but I'm not upset that I'm not at a level or in a place with something, a certain thing, right? So being just content. Like, there's nothing wrong with being content.
No. The only thing is, if you're completely lost in life, if you hadn't become a comedian, if you've gone on the wrong track, it's harder to have those moments of contentment because it gnaws at you and you become a little bit bitter. And as you get older and those childhood dreams start fading, you feel resentful and some dark energy can start taking over. And that contentment can be harder and harder to come by. But to have moments of peace, to have moments where you're just happy and you've got your kids are on, you're raising them well, et cetera, that's fine. That's beautiful. That's another form of mastery. I just think, and I could be wrong, because I'm not inside the skin of other people, and I've only known myself, I have to say. But if, I can say that pretty confidently. But, I have the feeling that if you don't know what you're doing, and you're just flailing around in life, it's hard to have those peaceful moments in your day-to-day existence. You may find them, but what will happen is you will try and grab, because this is the nature of the human animal, you will try to grab that contentment through quick things, through drugs, through online porn, through whatever it will give you that quick, instant little buzz of gratification.
Oh yeah, watching porno.
And that'll become your habit. And you'll feel kind of, I don't know if it's contentment, you'll feel something, some form of pleasure. But those pleasures become harder and become smaller and smaller and smaller and quicker and quicker and quicker. And so it's a trap that you fall into. So I still believe that if you figure out what you were meant to do in life, it opens up doors to having other moments where you don't have to constantly be pursuing, you don't have to constantly be striving, Like I could sit down and I could watch a basketball game tonight and enjoy it and not feel like I'm wasting my time because I worked so much hard during the day.
Right. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I'm getting at is it doesn't have to be occupational, finding your purpose.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes I think the best thing that a person could be a parent.
For sure. Believe me, we need more of them.
Yeah.
God damn, that should be like a job that people should get a degree for.
Really should.
You know?
Yeah, I would if government subsidized parenting, good parenting,
Yeah.
wow, I would be.
Or put people to school to go learn how to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well, there should be at least a pamphlet when you leave the hospital
Yeah.
that says, "Hey, these are 7 things you have to do." Right?
But I think I don't have kids, so it's easy for me to say.
Oh yeah, me either. So we're just obviously a couple of grifters yelling at people.
Yeah, right.
But no, I do think though that there should be something that tells a parent basic things because you can't just assume everyone has the knowledge just because they can conceive a child.
That's right.
You need to know it. Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. That's how you pick them. If you like firing on sports, like I do, Prize Picks is the best daily fantasy sports app for you. What I like about it,
It's like an accident, totally fortuitous. We know billions of other planets that have no life, right? So something snapped 3 billion years ago, 4 billion years ago that we don't understand. Wow. All right, from that point on, life evolved in this weird fashion. And there was this moment about 600 million years ago called the word escapes me. It's a period in history.
Mesozoic.
No, it's before that. It'll come to me later. It's
600 million years ago?
600 million years ago. Suddenly, life became complex. It'll come to me at some point. Maybe it's the Cretaceous period.
Spring or something?
Cretaceous. So, Cretaceous. So, suddenly, complex life evolved.
Cambrian explosion.
Cambrian explosion. Thank you, sir.
Sorry, not to cut you off. But 600 million years ago, the Earth experienced an evolutionary event which has never been repeated. The Cambrian explosion
Thank you.
saw a huge increase in new life forms, many of which laid the foundations for the body plans of all subsequent animal life. Wow, I've never even heard of that.
So there's this guy, Stephen Jay Gould, who wrote a book about the Cambrian explosion and how there were these forms of life. And he has pictures in his book of these really grotesque-looking creatures that lived in the ocean because all life was in water then. And if only one plan survived, which is the plan that all bodies basically have, right, with a head, et cetera, et cetera. But if that hadn't happened, and it almost didn't, the strangest, most weird-looking forms of life would be walking around this planet. You have to see these pictures to believe it, right? Anyway, that happened. Okay, I can go on and on and on. Then there were the dinosaurs. And the dinosaurs disappeared because of, we now know, because of a meteor, what do you call it?
Heat or something?
No. A meteor hit.
Oh, Big Bang.
Yeah.
Or like a
Yeah. It was,
meteor wiped everything out.
Yeah,
It shook the whole thing, huh?
about 60 million years ago, right? It ended up to the extinction of dinosaurs. But
Damn.
that meteor could have easily missed planet Earth. If it had shifted just a slight degree, it could have hit somewhere else, but it landed in exactly the spot in the Yucatan Peninsula that caused the greatest amount of damage. If that hadn't happened, dinosaurs would still be roaming the planet.
And then we wouldn't.
We would. Humans, about 80,000 years ago, nearly went extinct. There were only about 8,000 of us. We'd been decimated by various illnesses, etc. We very nearly went extinct as a species, okay? So humans surviving all of that, surviving that life evolved, surviving that life evolved in the way that it did, that dinosaurs disappeared, that mammals came on, is extremely unlikely. And then add on to this, Theo, the fact that your parents met, and there was a chance that they met was probably a bit unlikely. It could have easily been somebody else who was your father, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you would still be you, but you wouldn't be you exactly. It'd be different. Multiply that by 70,000 generations going back to the earliest humans.
Wow.
If they had met in a certain way, if they hadn't met each other, you would be you wouldn't be you at all, right? So the fact that you are here, the odds against it are so astronomical that I say in the book, you must just sit down on your knees, and it's like almost like a religion. You must think it is so strange, it is so miraculous, that I'm so grateful that I am who I am. It is incredible. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's something, that we all should, it's like that you were here, like you were, there is purpose in you. There was the universe chose this.
Yeah.
Whoever you are, the universe chose you. Whatever pain, whatever prosperity, whatever this walk is right now, that you were chosen for it. It's like, I feel like it just gives, I don't know, it helps me have some ownership when I'm thinking of myself, or I don't know what it does for me, but I think it's important to hear that, because I think more than ever now it feels like that individuality is getting lost for how rare we are to exist. Like, no, we only some of us have the same fingerprint. None of us have the same fingerprints, right? That's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
You know? And I think also is this, I think I read that everybody has the same, nobody has the same sphincter either, which is, the 11th fingerprint.
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, so that's crazy. Just to think that at both ends they really got you sealed off, very rare, uniquely. But it's definitely but I feel like for as unique as we are, we're losing individuality sometimes. And that's a problem that I feel like is going on today.
A lot of it is social media. I mean, you don't want to beat that drum too much, but I think there's some truth to it. We're too much attuned to what other people are doing, and it's hard for us to think about what we want, what makes us different. A lot of young people going to high school. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, being weird or different. You could be laughed at, but I think it's much worse right now.
Really?
Yes, I do. I mean, I was kind of a loner in high school. Kind of was a hippie, had very long hair, did a lot of drugs.
Yeah, buddy. Oh, there you are right there, buddy. Robert Greene right there. Wow.
That's 19-year-old Robert.
Bro, you look like you were looping right there, gooming on some.
Yeah, we were doing a lot of LSD at that time.
Yeah.
You can see the tie-dyed sofa behind me.
They had a tie-dyed sofa?
Yeah, look at that. Look at that thing. Yeah, we were like getting into the Grateful Dead, if you can believe it.
Oh, yeah. American Beauty, when that album was out, yeah.
Working Class Dead was the one Working Man's Dead was the one that came out just at that time.
Who would you take it with, by yourself, or would you take it with friends?
Oh, we took it with friends.
Yeah.
You really want me to go into this? I mean, the drug that we really liked at this point, we're talking about the 70s, I'm an old dude, man, was peyote.
Wow, I never got to do it.
It was really big because this was in Berkeley, and it was like the trendy thing. There were these buttons from cactus from Mexico or Arizona, and if you ate them, you would be incredibly sick. So you had to pull out all these little hairs so that you could digest them without throwing up. Then you had to, and they tasted absolutely horrible. You had to put them in these tiny little pieces and eat it in like peanut butter or like a milkshake, so you didn't have to just swallow it. Man, you'd be tripping like you can't believe it. It was just unbelievable. Totally transcendent. The most spiritual drug of all.
Really?
Yeah.
How would it get more, because spiritual is a unique word to use, because LSD would get freaky and weird sometimes. Mushrooms would get more spiritual, I felt like.
Definitely.
So peyote, you felt like went even more spiritual than that?
I think so. I mean, I did it probably maybe about a dozen times when I was younger.
Yeah.
And I've done LSD and I've done mushrooms are pretty spiritual. God, I'm revealing all this crap of my youth, but
no, I think it's important. A lot of people do these things, especially psychedelics are coming back more than ever now.
Well, I must say I don't do them anymore. I mean, I've tried little tiny micro dosing of mushrooms.
Yeah.
So I don't do it anymore, but it had a very positive impact on me. It opened my mind to things that I will never forget, right? Experiences that still resonate in my brain that I may not create through drugs, but I create through other means. I try to return to.
Yeah.
Spiritual sensations that are very powerful. So those drugs could be used, I say, for very positive purposes. They shouldn't be used just for partying and just for forgetting yourself, but they can be used to open what Aldous Huxley called the doors of perception.
Yeah. That's a great way. Yeah, that's the biggest thing is just the perception. Because perception is how you change everything about your life. Like, mushrooms have helped me many times to have perception adjustment, to realize where I was being not giving myself enough grace, or just being trying to control things, just to really just have a little more.
Yeah.
Because mushrooms is like a sponge, just to add a little bit more space into your how you view things or see things. And it could be anything, a relationship. I mean, there's business situations. I mean, they can help so much, I feel like. And they're being used more than ever, it seems like.
Definitely.
Because, I've microdosed before. Microdose, and I'll just like, during the day at one point, I'll see a mosquito and I'll kind of follow around the house for a minute.
Wow.
Then I'll go back to work, but that's about as like weird as it gets.
That's pretty damn weird.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious,
Yeah.
Just doing a little air traffic
Or you
control.
see the little ant on the ground there.
Yeah, to see where he's going.
Yeah.
I'm like, tell me if you're a scout. Yeah. Hey, look, dude, if you're trying to get away from something, blink once, So how long did peyote last? Did it last for like a long time?
You mean when you took it?
Yeah.
Well, if it would, like all those drugs, you would take effect after about 40 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And then it would be very intense for about 4 or 5 hours, and then it would kind of wear off. It's kind of had the same sort of span as mushrooms. In a way, it just depended on how many buttons you consumed. If you consumed like a dozen buttons, man, you'd be tripping for like several days.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we went that far.
You're a damn elevator car at that point, dude. You're going up, bro.
Yeah, but I mean, it has an incredible history among Native Americans and Mexicans.
Yeah, what did they use it for? Can you bring that up, Nick? I want to learn, like, if there was a distinctive, like, were they trying to talk to a god? Because I can't imagine the first time they took it, it must have blown their minds.
Well, it was the first time people experimented with all kinds of drugs. That fascinates me, how they didn't kill themselves, how they knew that it had that effect.
In the late 1800s, the modern-day Native American Church was formed, a key part of which is the ingestion of peyote as a religious sacrament during all-night prayer ceremonies. In this context, peyote is not viewed as a drug, but rather as a medicine for healing. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of reminds me of like how ayahuasca is these days.
It is, very much so. I've never done it. I think ayahuasca sounds even more intense. Yeah, so I don't know, but I think it's similar to that, yeah.
I've had some good experiences with it. For me, it's been very therapeutic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think of it as a drug, and I understand if other people do, that's fine. I think of it as a medicinal drug, but I don't think of it as a party. It's very painful to go sit there and you go through the filing cabinet of who you are and pull out some files and kind of burn them in a way,
I don't know. I'm a little bit frightened about that myself at my age,
Oh, you could rock in there, I think.
You think so?
Yeah, it doesn't. I find it to be actually not super invasive. I could get up and go pee or go get a snack in the kitchen and then go sit back down and drop back into the meditation.
Really?
Yeah, and I felt very okay with that.
Well, I don't consider it.
Yeah. How do you feel like we're like? Well, one thing that I worry about with society today is since we watch so much of each other, right? We're never spending that time like getting to know ourselves, kind of. We're not, I remember you used to just lie around all the time, and sure, it seemed like you were bored, but your brain was like maybe coming up slowly, building ideas or, forming like thoughts or hopes, dude. I remember you used to be able to hope so much. Because you would hope you would see this girl across town, or you would hope that she was going to be at summer camp, or there was just no way to know everything, so you had so much hope all the time. And now there's so much information that I feel like it's taken away a lot of hope. But I feel like even more so that, and I don't want to be like Debbie Downer, there's still hope, but I feel like it's subdued hope. But I feel like if we're always watching stuff, then do we start to just mimic it instead of being individual? That's what I worry about. Do you think that's possible? Like if we're always, do we become more mimics than creators? And has it always been that way, do you think?
No, I don't. I think things are getting worse. Of course, I don't know. I don't have, I can't see everything, but my feeling is it is getting worse. I mean, I do believe that there is something as vague as that word is that is like a soul that a person has. And that soul is connected to who you are as an individual. Like you're kind of born with it, right? And when you know who you are, when you go deep into it, when you connect to things that you really love, when you connect to your memories from childhood, to things that make you different, that soul's kind of alive. It feels alive, it feels vibrant, it feels right.
Yeah.
The feeling of rightness, which is I think people don't understand. Some things feel right, some things don't. Okay? And I know for myself, and I'm guilty of it, if I spend an hour on Instagram chasing this thing or that thing, or wasting my time on this website or whatever, I have this feeling like a bit of my soul was sucked out of me.
Yes.
That I kind of lost something. That I'm just this kind of machine that's just processing data, and I'm not a human being anymore. And I feel that soul kind of, it's like a vapor that's escaping me, right? So
Yeah, I feel like they got me. They tricked me.
Yeah.
The second I set it down, I feel like it almost takes a couple of seconds for you to get out of this trance.
Yeah.
In a way.
It is a trance.
You're like, dang, they tricked me.
They did trick me. Yeah.
Because a lot of the algorithms and the entertainment value of it is so strong. Sure, it's entertaining, but with all the time you spend doing that, or that I or anybody spends, it's time that I feel like you could be doing things that would get me to know myself better.
Yeah.
But that's what I wonder, are the scales of that other stuff getting so heavy? So like, have they narrowed the algorithm so cleanly with everything, the pornography? It's taken away so many, like,
It's frightening.
it's frightening. That's what I wonder. Do you feel like there is a way for that? Is it just a cycle and there's a way out of that?
Well, the possible optimistic scenario, which I don't know will happen, is that human beings have a spirit, and that we'll get so disgusted with it that we'll rebel, that a young generation will evolve, probably not Gen Z, probably 3 or 4 generations from now, that will find it so lifeless and so, sick, but so unfruitful, not giving them anything, that they will rebel and they will be angry and they'll say, screw all this crap, I want to go back to something else. I want to go back to something in the past or whatever, however far back, or I want to create something new, a real revolution of sorts, a consciousness revolution. That can happen because human beings have that capacity. And it's happened before in history where we've gone through these cycles of kind of our soul disappearing.
Really?
And yes, definitely. And people kind of going crazy and moments of chaos. Yeah.
Does one come to mind?
Well, I mean, think of the people that have succumbed to things like Nazism or, those kind of things where they're mass hallucinations and being drugged.
Yeah.
And the Germans now, I mean, however, you might not like Germans, I don't know. I mean, they're nice people.
I'm fine with them.
I'm fine.
I don't know all of them.
But they're not like that anymore, right? So they emerged from that. So kind of mass hallucination sort of thing. But there were periods, I'm going to get kind of wonky here, but I believe it was the 3rd century or 4th century BC in Greece, where they went through this incredible crisis where their belief, their gods, all that was disappearing. People who didn't believe in it anymore. And there was a crisis. Human beings need to believe in something, need to believe in something larger than themselves.
Yeah.
And when they don't, things can get really nasty and chaotic and soulless. And I think that's sort of what we're going through right now. It's kind of what I'm writing about in my new book. But I think people will find their way back to it. It'll take young people who get disgusted with this kind of mechanical culture that we have.
Yeah.
Will that happen? I don't know. These algorithms, as you say, are insanely powerful.
Yeah, it's like we're really up against this darkness that we've created, which is kind of fascinating too. It has very much a story. It's like all the stories, it's like the perfect story, It's like you create the Frankenstein. It really is. When it comes to like individuality, right?
Yeah.
What is a good way for people to start to get to know themselves? Does it make sense to you what I'm asking? Kind
Yeah,
of?
it does. Well, I keep coming back to something that I tell a lot of people I think is very important is the desire to know yourself. So people are very good at faking it. And you could be out there listening and you go, yeah, I kind of want to know myself better. Okay, let me get online and get, and they just forget about it because the other forces are stronger than them. You have to have a level, that if you're in recovery, a level of disgust. You have to hit bottom.
Yeah.
You have to go, I don't want to be like this anymore. I want to find out who I am. I want to touch that core of individuality that I know is still within me, that soul that I believe is still there. You have to have the desire. If there's no desire there, if you're just mimicking, if you're just saying it just for the sake of it because it sounds good, I can't help you. But if it's still there, yeah, you want to start by, the many paths you can take. A very good path is to take a journal and start journaling, right? And writing down your thoughts and writing down your dreams. And when I say that, I say, don't do it on a computer. I know a lot of young people don't know how to handwrite anymore. But pick up a pen. I still handwrite a lot of things. Pick up a pen and a journal and write it down. Dreams, I know it sounds woo-woo, but it's not. Dreams are really powerful, very interesting. They're going to tell you a lot about yourself, right? It's going to tell you about those journeys your brain takes at night that are pretty fantastical. Okay, you write that down. You go back into your childhood and you go, what was it that made me so different, that was so weird about me? What was it that I was attracted to? As you go through that process, things will start coming up. It's like you're digging, you're excavating, like you're an archaeologist into your own past.
Yeah, it's like using a brush and brushing off. You see a little bit of bone, and then you're like, what other questions can I ask around here that might help me remove a little more dirt?
Yeah, and memories will come up, like your memory when you're 2 years old and your brother popping up his head. Things will start coming back to you. And you'll start connecting to who you were when you were young, and you're connecting to who you were as an adolescent. Adolescence is an extremely important part of our life. It really is almost the most formative part. It's where we really made that turn into this or into that, right? And I find returning to your adolescence, returning to those strong, powerful emotions that you felt, those sexual things that were just so overwhelming. Those other things that, that were happening. Returning to that, because psychologists have studied, that is the period when you feel what makes you different the most, right? It's when you feel the most rebellious, when you understand, this is who I am. I'm not like my parents. You're 13, you're 14, all of a sudden you go, I don't have to be like mom or dad. In fact, I want to be I want to be totally different. Adolescence is like a really key thing to go deep into that will show you a lot about your individuality, about who you are, and about who you've become. So it's a process, and it should be a very exciting process.
Right. You shouldn't look at, that's the thing. If you look at it as like, oh shit, I got to do this. But to carve out a little time where you're like, let me think, what were some things, look at old photos and stuff like that. Really look at yourself a little bit like you're studying something,
Even listen to the music that you liked, however embarrassing that might be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what'd you listen to, man? Remember the first song that you heard?
I can't go. I think I was 4 years old or so, and my sister, who's 4 years older than me, had a Beatles album. And it was, I'm older
Abbey
than you.
Road?
No, God, no. I'm almost so much older than that. It was like Meet the Beatles. And it was the song, I Saw Her Standing There, I think the single. And I'm like, wow, this is so weird. This is so different. It's hard for people to imagine because the Beatles seem sort of cliched now. But when that sound first came out, I was like, there is nothing else like this out there. It's amazing. It's fantastic. And I remember my grandmother was there, and she couldn't understand it. She thought it was awful. And I thought it was the most amazing thing. I think that was the first song I can remember, I can recall.
Yeah, I remember my mom used to play Bryan Adams all the time and make us clean the house to it. And then she would sometimes abuse us if we didn't clean up good. But
Bryan Adams, wow.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. But then What else would we all? I've told this story before, but the first a camp counselor, a woman picked me up and took me to camp one day because my mom couldn't take me in summer camp, and she reached over and put my seatbelt on me. And it was like the first time that like a woman, like other, I guess, than my mother had been near me.
Oh, wow.
And then she put on Bon Jovi.
Wow.
And I was like, what is going on, dude? Are we married? Like,
wow. How old were you?
I was probably 7 or 8. And I'm sure I'd heard something before that, but nothing that, this moment, that was the first song I remember hearing and being like, yeah, I want to hear that song again.
Wow.
But yeah, I think it was because there was maybe because there was a woman there or something, but that was something that I remembered. What was it? In a lot of your books, you have The Art of Seduction. You have 48 Laws of Power. You have Mastery. You're always like looking at yourself and finding ways, it seems like, to encourage the most out of oneself.
Yeah.
How did that kind of begin for you? Like, what was there like a period in your time where you're like, I wasn't my best self, or I'm not going to let this happen to me again? Like, what was that trigger kind of for you?
Well, there were many triggers. So I was out of college. I decided to go into journalism because I needed to make a living. I wanted to write, but I had to support myself. I was living in New York, and I was very poor at the time. I had a very low-level job, and it wasn't connecting to me. I felt like something was wrong. I didn't like the fact that you would write something, and then the next day it would be on to something else. It was totally forgotten. It didn't last. And I was into something because I love history. If it doesn't last more than 24 hours, what's the point? It should last like 12 years, 20, 100 years. What you write should have some weight to it. I felt wrong, so I left it. I wandered around Europe for about 4 or 5 years, sometimes with a backpack. I worked in a hotel in Paris. I did construction work in Greece because I ran out of money. I taught English in Barcelona. I worked in a crappy television show in London. I led a tour guide thing in Dublin, Ireland, trying to write novels. And I was starving.
It's like a John Irving story, it almost seems like.
It was like, it's such a cliche. I was a cliche of the American, the young American trying to write a novel. I had amazing experiences, experiences that seeded all of my books, but nothing happened, and I was lonely and I was depressed, and I felt like something was wrong.
What were you basing your achievement on? Something? What do you think you were looking for in that? Because it sounds like a searching kind of time.
Well, I was trying to write a novel, but I couldn't write it. It wasn't happening. My mind wasn't. I don't think I would have been a good novelist because I'm too much into ideas, and my novels were just like these kind of big kind of sticks with a big idea on it that you were supposed to read about. It didn't have life to it. I think I could do it now, but something was wrong about it, and I couldn't earn a living off of it. I was on my own. I had to earn a living. I didn't want to be doing all these crap jobs my whole life. So I came back to LA, where I'm from. My father wasn't well, and I got a job in Hollywood, thinking this is the golden path. Money, writing, glamour, whatever, the dream.
Fancy, yeah. Cocaine, women.
All of that.
Yeah.
And none of it happened. I had the cocaine and all that stuff. I didn't have the success. I had all the other stuff, but none of the really stuff I was after. Yeah. And so, to answer your question, nothing was going right. Nothing was quite fitting, right? And I had a moment. I was getting kind of desperate, and my girlfriend was saying, maybe you got to stop trying to have it both ways, where you have your writing, your creativity, and then you have earning a living. Maybe you can't have both. So she said, I always wanted to write plays and theater and stuff. So she said, go ahead and do that. And that was a kind of a turning point where I'm going to stop trying to just be this person that other people wanted me to be, and I'm going to follow what excites me, even though I can't make a living in it. And that was a very important part. It meant yeah, I can do something that's kind of fun, and maybe it will turn into something.
Well, it's the same thing you talk about in mastery too, kind of that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. And then, so sometimes fate has its weird ways of operating. Just as after I had done that, writing the plays, we put them on here in Los Angeles. We performed them. I acted in them. She directed them. We did all the work ourselves. Very strange plays. Right after that, I met this man in Italy who offered me the chance to write a book. And something clicked in me going, Robert, all the bad choices in your life, all the mistakes, everything can turn on this moment, right? You can go from being this kind of loser in your one-bedroom apartment in Santa Monica. You can somehow turn this around. A book? Wow, I never thought of that before. Not a novel, but a nonfiction book.
I see. So you'd never considered that. Of course not. If you're thinking of fiction, you're thinking of like the F. Scott Fitzgerald. You're thinking of like a magnificent piece, on the road with Kerouac. You're thinking of something that's going to change the tides,
Exactly.
But then you're like, oh, damn, like a nerd book.
Exactly. But I'm kind of a strange individual, I have to say, for better or worse, because until I was 38, it was for the worse, right? And my parents were getting really worried about me. But when I had the chance to write The 48 Laws of Power, my first book, I made it a book that that's not like anything else out there, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's something you've done in your comedy. There's nobody else out there like Theo Vaughn. You're unique. I made the book look weird, feel weird. Nothing about it was like anything else. It was dark. It was kind of like language was a little bit strong. It was controversial.
It even looks biblical almost, this one.
That one, yeah.
This copy. The coolest thing is the face that's in this.
There's two faces.
Oh, is one of them Benjamin Franklin, one of them's you? Oh, no, wait, one of them's Henry.
No, it's Machiavelli.
Oh, Machiavelli.
And me.
I was thinking it was the guy from Black Flag. That is Henry.
Henry Rollins?
Yeah.
It looks like Henry Rollins.
A little bit.
You mean me or Machiavelli?
Well, unfortunately, Machiavelli.
Oh, okay.
You still look like you, but you look handsome.
Henry Rollins is a lot more, yeah, I know. He's a lot beefier than I am.
He's different than
more
us,
intimidating.
man. Yeah, maybe he's more intimidating.
Is he still alive? What happened to him?
I think he lives, I believe, actually, that he lives in Tennessee, yeah.
Oh,
I've heard that.
wow.
He moved to Nashville.
Yeah, I heard that he moved to Nashville. I would love to meet him sometime. Some of my friends have worked with him. I think he's a very interesting guy. And there's Machiavelli now.
I don't see a resemblance.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe the eyes, yeah.
Yeah, maybe the eyes. They each have two eyes. Thank you for
That's a good one.
Thank you for trying to support me there, Robert.
Took me a little while to hear them catch on.
It took me a while too. I didn't realize it was a joke until I said it. But so then at that point, that's you kind of like realizing something's different here. There's this voice that says this could be something for you. You need to follow this. And was it hard for you to like start to make that happen for yourself?
Well, as I said, I was 38 years old. I hadn't really amounted to anything. And this guy, Joost Elfers, who's the producer of the book, he offered me this chance. I pitched to him what turned out to be the 48 Laws of Power. He got so excited. So what happened was I went home to LA and I go, Robert, it was before 50 Cent coined the expression, but it's either get rich or die trying here, right? You either make this book work or you're just going to be floundering the rest of your life, right? So I was so motivated. I was so hungry and desperate, and that this had to be it, that I put everything I had into it. And it's hard for me to understand now because it took 2 years to write. Now it takes me 5 years to write a damn book.
Damn.
All that research, all that creating something that hadn't been out there before, I don't know how I did it, but all I can say is there was something else inside of me that was so hungry that it made it happen. So there wasn't any like, I can't do this kind of thing. It was like, if I don't do it, that's it. I have in one book, in my book on strategy and warfare, this thing that I call death ground strategy. It's a great expression. It comes from Sun Tzu, and it's if your back is to the ocean or your back is against a mountain and you're fighting the enemy, you're going to fight with 10 times the energy because it's either conquer them or you're going to die, right? So you put yourself on death ground. You either succeed or terrible things will happen. You find energy that you hadn't believed you had. You find creativity that you hadn't believed you had.
Did you lock yourself in a hole or something? Did you create that scenario for yourself? Did you change your habits? Because it seems like you have to really change your habits to produce something that.
Well, I had good work habits and I had learned how to research. But one thing my girlfriend did was I had this cat who just would never leave me alone.
Oh, yeah.
He was so attached to me. And quite honestly, he probably made it so I couldn't write a book. So she created this table, this very thin table that would fit right in here on the chair. I could put my laptop on. He couldn't get on it.
Oh, wasn't enough space for him.
No. And that allowed me to write the book.
Damn, dude. That's they say a cat also, and I'll tell you because I know this, but a cat will, if you die, a cat will probably start eating your face within like 48 hours.
That's very nice to hear. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I'm not going to look at my cat the same way now.
But I just want to let you know, so don't be shocked that they want to stop you from writing a book.
Okay. He wanted to eat me or something?
I'm just saying, they're playing a long game.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? They want to ruin it all.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're just, they're just saving face, by trying to get you to think that writing a book is the issue. But that's so, it's like, but that's almost such a metaphor. Like I'm going to make a table that a cat can't get on, and that way I'll be able to write my book.
We still have the table. It's really cool looking. She painted it. She made these kind of backgammon signs on it. It was really cool.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah. What a neat. That's a fascinating little piece of information. Did you feel more powerful after the book?
Well, I couldn't have felt less powerful because I had no power really up until then. But you don't know because a lot of things fail in life, right?
Oh yeah.
And the book could have flopped easily because it was so different and weird. And so I had no idea. But then suddenly it starts selling well, and I'm getting, the press was pretty good. And I remember in early 1999. I was invited to Italy for a book tour. And this was like the strangest moment of my life, probably. I don't know if you know at Disneyland, they have Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, where it's like he goes on this really weird adventure and it kind of blows your mind if you're like 4 years old. This was like my Mr. Toad's Wild Ride because suddenly I was invited to this conference where I was mingling with Italian politicians, where paparazzi were following me around and taking my photograph. I went, well, who am I? But this was the land of Machiavelli. And the 48 Laws of Power seemed really great to them, right? So suddenly I'm starting to realize, well, maybe this book has legs. Maybe something will happen. Then a couple of years later in Playboy magazine, there's an interview with Jay-Z, and Jay-Z quotes the 48 Laws of Power.
Wow.
I would go, wow. It's like infiltrating that far. That's pretty interesting. And always give slow just later in Playboy magazine. Book has legs. Maybe something will happen. Then a couple years later in Playboy